Good morning. Good morning. I want to welcome everybody here this morning, family and friends. The Drake family is, really thankful that you all made the efforts to come in memory of Diane. We're here to celebrate and honor, Diane's all too brief life. And that's the real tough part about it. Then when you lose somebody, theoretically before their time. You might notice the hairstyle and the fascinators that a lot of the ladies are wearing today. That speaks directly to Diane and her love of the British culture and fashion. Final reminder, these things, I know everybody in here has one or two of them. If you would be sure to turn the ringers off or silence them somehow so we don't have any interruptions. And we'll start with a reading from Christy. Thank you again for coming.
All right. She is Gone by David Harkins. You can shed tears that she is gone, or you can smile because she has lived. You can close your eyes and pray she'll come back. You can open your eyes and see all she's left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see her, or you can be full of the love you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember her only that she is gone, or you can cherish her memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what she'd want, smile, open your eyes, love and go on.
My little note says, breathe and stand still. Good morning. I'm Catherine. I'm also known as Kathy, and I am Diane's sister. My family turned to me to deliver this remembrance, as Diane and I were very close. But she was close with many people. There are, in fact, 4 women in this very room who claim that Diane was their best friend. And even one of my best friends said that they actually liked Diane better than me. She was very lucky to have so many wonderful people in her life. But I didn't know where to begin in preparing my younger sister's eulogy. Diane's death was too sudden and too soon. Diane and I had many talks about mortality over the years, especially 11 years ago when she thought that there was a very good chance of her dying from cancer. We talked about what kind of service she wanted. She had 2 ideas. The first was that she wanted a banner made that said, "Really?" Wait a minute. Oh. Okay, that is really unfortunate. I think it might have been on here too long. Here we go. See you on the other side. She wanted a banner made like that. So she thought this would be hilarious. She had a great sense of humor. But we did not make this banner. Diane was not a member of an organized religion, but she was spiritual and open-minded to others' beliefs, provided that they were respectful of others and were not racist, homophobic, or misogynistic. She was practicing meditation in recent years, usually in her hot tub with a glass of champagne. She believed in ghosts. So again, 11 years ago, she suggested that any memorial service for her include a sign-up sheet that said, "Do you want me to haunt you, and how?" This all true. Yeah, so no, there's no sign-up sheet today. But we had not talked about such details recently. When I looked through all her pictures after she died, it occurred to me that the best way to talk about Diane would be to talk about the people she loved and the people she left behind, and to tell her story through these photos and the people in them. So that's what I'm going to do. Diane came into this world in May of 1963. She was the fifth of the 6 children of Diane Drake in Miami, Florida, and there hadn't been a new baby for 6 years. This is our family when Diane was about 2 years old. I'd like to point out that she is looking at me with adoration even back then. Here my mom is pregnant with her last child, Mary, and you can see our birth order here. Neil, Gary, Gail, me, Diane adoring me, and Mary in the oven there. I think birth order strongly influenced Diane's personality. She emerged into a family of extroverts, and she herself was the most reserved of all of us. However, people who met her would never believe that she was the quiet one. From a normal standpoint, she was outgoing and sociable, but from a Drake standard, she was practically a recluse. From an early age, Diane set herself apart from the rest of us with her signature blonde hair and bright blue eyes. Diane's grandniece, 2-year-old Claire, will be running around here later, and you will see what a remarkable resemblance there is to Diane at this age. This was about the time our youngest sibling, Mary, came along, undoubtedly rocking Diane's world. This is one of Diane's favorite pictures, one of the dozen family photos she had framed in her home. It shows that our mom, who has a newborn baby on her lap, has somehow managed to make us 3 matching dresses, don us all in Easter finery, curl our hair in time for Easter morning mass. And this shot doesn't even include the teenage boys that were dressed equally neat. I don't know how she did it at this particular morning, but both our mom and dad were exceptional humans, and much of Diane's personality was an excellent mix of both of them. She had mom's class and style, and dad's quick wit and ability to hold her liquor. She loved our parents very much. And this is one of Gail's favorite pictures, featuring the 3 of us playing beauty pageant contestants. I think it's hilarious that we have towels and bathrobes on as our formal wear, but Gail and I remember doing this on more than one occasion. But what's important about this picture is that my dad made us those crowns and sashes. It's just a tiny example of how he engaged with us back before it was commonplace for a father to do so. Viddy was an involved father, which led to Diane's being a very secure woman. Also, I believe that this early crown wearing may have led to Diane's later fascination with British royalty. Diane's family nickname was Daisy. One of our more dramatic family stories of Daisy was the time Neil put her on his bicycle handlebars and Gary put me on his handlebars, and we decided to have a race down our street. Neil told this story last night when we were together a little differently, but that's basically our individual ideas of how it happened. But anyway, deciding to cut us off, Neil turned his bike sharply onto the sidewalk, and Diane flew off the bike, hit the ground, and became unconscious. Neil carried her home, handed her to our parents, and said, "We broke Diane." She came to and just went along her merry way. A few years later, when she was about 10, she fell off our crazy pony, and he ran over her, leaving 2 hoof prints on her chest. And she just stood up like nothing happened. These 2 events were early indicators of her remarkable resiliency. By the time Diane was about 6 years old, her older brothers were heading out of the house, leaving a little more elbow room in our small home. Check out how good our mom looks in this middle of raising 6 kids. It's crazy. It was also about the time the Daltons moved in next door and became one of the constants in Diane's younger years. Their house was a powerful magnet for all the Drake girls, and Jennifer was the pretend little sister who happily played along. We are so glad that we are still in touch with the Daltons after all these years. So this is Diane's 6th grade report card, which exemplifies her legendary self-esteem. Diane always exuded confidence. She took it upon herself to correct this particular report card to include the qualities that the school system hadn't considered, notably good looks and acting, for which she gave herself the highest marks. That's not to say that as middle school approached, she didn't feel the pain of the awkward years. Glasses, braces, and headgear. This was when Diane developed her lifelong love of hiding in her bedroom and reading. She was always content to be on her own, happy with a good book and a bag of Fritos. And I'm not exaggerating about the reading. Diane left behind 2 Kindles with 308 books loaded on them and from just the last 5 years. It's about 61 books a year just from Amazon and doesn't include all that she got from the library. And I love the range of what she read. This is a screenshot from one page of her Kindle. We got so much diversity here. Historical romance, a favorite, mysteries, contemporary fiction, autobiographies, she just loved to read. But as Diane got out of her room and entered junior high, she met some friends that would forever change her life, Robin and Michelle. Now, Diane has 2 friends in her life named Robin, so for this next bit, I will be referring to her childhood friend, Robin. Robin, Michelle, and Diane have been thick and thin and true for over 40 years. In junior high, they spent their days riding their bikes to each other's houses and around the neighborhood. Robin and Michelle would go to Diane's house and drag her away from her cosmopolitan magazines to go prank the neighborhood boys. One of the pranks, likely Diane's idea, involved ripping photos from their father's hidden Playboy magazines and pasting them all over the inside of the boys' fort. Together, they navigated the challenges of these years and forged a lasting friendship. As they switched into high school, they and their other friends would have parties and sleepovers and spend their after-school hours at our house, where they would watch Merv Griffith with our dad while he made them snacks. Diane would say that she had a great time in high school, and the reason was the good times and friendship with Michelle and Robin. They have been each other's bridesmaids, roommates, shared secrets and experiences, and have never gone long without being in touch. Diane watched their boys grow up into young men with the pride of an aunt. Their husbands, Mike and Hector, were her friends and watched after her. When geography separated them, it was a mere inconvenience. Their texts and phone calls and trips to see each other kept them tight. Just this past fall, the 3 of them traveled to England for a week, using the occasion of Princess Beatrice's wedding to don fascinators and take in the sights. Our fascinators we wear today are a nod to Diane's love for all things British. She loved British literature, British television, British names, British style, British history. The loss of their dear friend leaves them both profoundly sad. They have lost a confidant and a soul sister. They were supposed to grow old together, and their lives will never be the same without Diane. These 2 photos and a couple of faded transcripts are the only evidence that Diane actually went to the University of Florida. Diane loved college life and rooming with Robin, but not the actual academic part. She came home the summer after her freshman year and took a job at Axico, a company owned by a family friend. It was during this time that she met and fell madly, head over heels, hopelessly in love with one Christopher Cobden Wick, who also worked there. There was the small matter that Chris already had a girlfriend, but that did not stop Diane. She set her sights on Chris and didn't quit until they were dating. She headed back to Gainesville, leaving Chris at University of Miami, and promised Mom and Dad to better apply herself. She did not. She went back for a couple more semesters, but alas, she missed Chris too much. She quit University of Florida, enrolled at the community college, moved in with Michelle, and got a job. As Robin and Michelle said, Diane was a blast in her 20s. She was so pretty and served as an excellent wingman for her friends. So striking with her height and hair, they would shove her in front of a line at a club or bar and always get in, even when they were underage. They had fun during their young and beautiful days in Miami. Francine joined the gang, and there were lots of get-togethers, dinners, New Year's Eves, Friday happy hours at the beach. These were the post-college and getting their careers going days, and they never failed to have fun. Chris and Diane were married in 1990. Chris was a great dancer and taught Diane how to dance. They were very happy and bought a townhouse and settled into married life. One of their ongoing activities was hurricane preparedness. Chris, famously thrifty, used to make Diane valentines, most of which she left behind, and they are both funny and touching. Chris's family became a big part of Diane's life as well, and going to the country club for dinner and dancing was one of Diane's favorite things they did as a family. Most of her 20s and 30s, Diane worked for a Unisa shoe company, making her good friend Anna along the way. First she did sales, then became a store manager, then district manager, then regional manager. She was a hard worker, but most importantly, she frequently got us free purses and shoes and shared them. Diane enjoyed being part of the fashion industry. The regional manager job required frequent travel to exotic locations like Alabama. But after a few years, the work travel got old, and she switched gears and became office manager of a high-end boutique for 4 years. She then returned to UNISA in a position that did not require travel for the last 3 years of her retail career. Diane was always the go-to person for any shoe, purchase, or accessorizing question. She knew her stuff. Chris and Diane loved to travel, and Chris was obsessed with ships, dragging Diane on many a cruise. They got to Europe a few times, and they were very compatible travel partners. They also absolutely loved going to visit our folks in the mountains of North Carolina and tried to get up there as often as their vacation time would allow. And of course, during these years, there were our every other year epic family reunions where we would get together with our cousins in locations across the country. Our cousins, the Derricos, were a very big part of Diane's childhood, especially on holidays. As anyone who knows Diane would tell you, she adored her dogs. Chris and Diane first started with pets with a couple of kittens, but eventually got their first dog, a Yorkie named Beatrice. Beatrice was followed by 4 more dogs, Violet, Bailey, Lulu, and most recently, V, a rescue impulse purchase. She even took our parents' dog Charlie after they passed. These fur babies meant so much to Diane, especially in recent years. They were her constant companions. We are so grateful that Sam and Melissa have given Lulu and V a new home. It can't be easy taking 2 dogs in. We are hopeful that they will ultimately give their new family the same joy they gave Diane. And this is Austin, one of Sam and Melissa's twin boys with V. Diane and Chris had a good life together for so long, but then things began to go downhill fast when Chris began getting ill when they were in their early 40s. Diane was incredibly strong during this period as she worked to support them and took care of Chris as he declined. For about 2 years, it was very stressful, and the toll it took on her was great. A couple of months before Chris died, right around when this picture was taken, Diane was diagnosed with metastatic sarcoma. It was very serious, and she was given just a 2-year life expectancy. This is Diane when Chris was hospitalized for the last time and was in organ failure. This picture is so sad, but yet so beautiful. She was going through chemotherapy and had lost all her hair, yet she still had the strength to see Chris through his last days and bring him home for hospice care. With the help of devoted friends and family, Diane said goodbye to Chris. She was a widow with cancer at 45 years of age. But she was also the strongest person I ever met. She lost the person she loved most in her life, went through years of getting chemicals pumped through her body to keep herself alive, and dealt with the enormous medical and prescription drug bills, she'd want me to say this, due to the failed health care system of our country. But she kept moving forward. She picked herself up, dusted herself off, and made the best life she could. She was the definition of resiliency. And it wasn't easy. It was difficult for her to find her place in the world. Unable to work, she lived a life in limbo. Was she going to die as the doctors predicted, or was she somehow going to make it? Should she spend all her money, or save it just in case? 4 years after being diagnosed, she said, well, I'm still alive, and decided to sell her house in Miami and move to Gainesville to be close to our parents, who had just moved there from North Carolina. Sadly, within 2.5 years, both our parents would be gone, but while they were here in Gainesville, Diane and our brother Neil were the ones that helped them so much during their final years. Because of their huge age gap, Neil and Diane hadn't spent much time together until they were older. But once Di moved to Gainesville, they were inseparable. Mostly they were inseparable because Neil enslaved her at the one-room schoolhouse. Where is he? Did I say enslave? I meant he saved her by opening up a new career path for her when she was able to return to the workforce. One of their favorite activities together outside of work was eating out. often with Neil's wife, Ronnie, and much of their disposable income went toward feeding Diane at restaurants. I think of their relationship as very symbiotic, each being there in ways that really enhanced each other's lives. And needless to say, Neil made Diane laugh. Being in Gainesville also meant being near Neil's family. Neil's sons Sam and Melissa got things really hopping in Gainesville when they delivered twins, Corbin and Austin. Diane had never before had the contact with babies as she did with them. She was smitten, even occasionally babysitting. Diane was always so impressed with Sam's fishing skills and Melissa's ability to manage her boys. Lately, when Corbin and Austin started preschool at one schoolhouse, she was thrilled to get to see them on a daily basis. Diane thought it was particularly funny when they got all their 4-year-old classmates to call her Aunt Diane at school. Icing on the cake a couple of years later, when Neil's other son, Harry, and wife, Leah, had a little boy, James. Harry and Leah and Diane had forged a tight connection. As Leah learned, Diane was easy to talk to and doled out practical advice. Diane was impressed with and rooting for the business that Harry and Sam had established flipping houses. Harry was the first one who called me after I learned the news that Diane died, and I will never forget that brief, heartbreaking conversation. He called all of us. Both of these young families became an integral part of Diane's life in Gainesville, as well as Becky, their mom, who had known Diane since she was a little girl. Diane once said, "With Becky, you always know there's another adult in the room." She appreciated her wise ways and their easy friendship. Becky and her husband Dave and the entire gang made Gainesville home for Diane, and although some of us wanted her to move to Vermont, she wasn't ready yet to give up her family and job at the one-room schoolhouse. Those of us who have known Diane her whole life would never imagine she would end up in a career that centered around children. She cared for the success of the students in school greatly. I can imagine her just do it attitude was pretty apparent in the workplace, and that she was frequently appalled by those who just didn't do it. I know she had fun with the folks at One Room because she always talked about you. She was happy to go to work, and that says a lot. She had fun with her colleagues both in and out of school. You were the ones she saw every day. I knew the names before I met you. Miss Minnie, Robin, Crystal, Sarah, Paige, Sandra, Sergio, on and on. I honestly cannot remember her speaking negatively about anyone recently. She must have gotten rid of the ones who weren't sparking joy. Right? And Diane's great new friend, whom she called Good Robin, you are now settling into her job as business director, and that must be especially tough on your heart. Not a historically hands-on kid person, Diane rose to the occasion when needed. I found this birthday note from one of the students, and I'm sure she greatly appreciated. Miss Diane, thank you for making us feel better. Thank you for the medicine and being the nurse today. Thanks for letting us use the phone. You are so nice to everyone. You are so cool. You are like the popular person in the school. I know what, this is like the only note she saved. Happy birthday. Love, Carmen. P.S. How old are you and who gave you the flowers? She got such a kick out of these types of interactions. So to Neil and all of you from One Room who knew Diane too briefly, remember that she was so grateful for you and the second act. This cloud over the school appeared in an otherwise cloudless sky the day after she died. It was perhaps a wave from Diane. And now the Plantation Drakes, a name Diane coined for her brother Gary and his family who lived down in Plantation, Florida. Diane greatly admired Gary for his ability to rise to family crises and be there for us. This was exemplified when our mom had cancer in the 90s and again when Diane was faced with the same crisis. Diane appreciated his dry sense of humor and dedication to family. Gary and wife Jennifer, who provided many a legal opinion for Diane, as well as sons Dylan and Tyler, held a special place in Diane's heart. Diane was not able to provide the highly coveted fashion advice, however, to Dylan and Tyler, these football-playing nephews, but she did make an effort to connect. Here she is pretending to talk football with Tyler, but in reality was trying to find out what was going on with his girlfriend. Diane loved watching these guys grow up. She got to see them realize academic and football success and was following their burgeoning careers. She was always impressed with their hard work on and off the field. Gail and Diane. For so long, Gail and Diane lived not far from each other in Miami. In the early days, they were partying together, but later Diane was so grateful to have Gail instrumental in helping during Chris's last months. Gail was there for Diane when she needed her most, and Diane never forgot it. Gail made Chris's last months less lonely when he couldn't work, and she was there daily for a good laugh and conversation. One of the things that Diane and Gail had in common is their interest in living simply and living by themselves. Gail's daughter Christy, Diane's first niece, was born when Diane was just 15, and lucky because Diane was around a lot during her childhood. Diane and Chris would take Christy out on their boat looking for manatees and have her over to play with their cats, launching Christy's renowned love for her feline companions. They shared a love of reading, and Diane always appreciated Christy's desire to be a homebody just like her. Hands down, of all our siblings, Diane had the most fun when hanging out with Mary, because Mary loves fun. They spent their child together in their early 20s having a good time. Most of their childhood was spent without the other siblings around. They also shared a love of all things food-related, especially eating out. Perhaps some of you have noticed Diane's passion for food. Diane appreciated Mary's energy for a good time and their shared love of their dogs. She also greatly admired Mary's husband John's equal enjoyment of fun, spirituality, and for being such a great dad to their daughters, Kendall and Hannah. Speaking of whom, one thing that Diane would have been sorry to miss was the next chapter of Kendall and Hannah's lives. Would there be weddings, kids, Instagram fame? She was always confident that it would all work out for them because of their effervescent personalities and beautiful souls. She was always pretty sure they would have meaningful lives and absolutely certain they would always have great dogs. I want to thank my daughters, Julia and Bridget, who always assured me that if anything happened to me, that they would always be there for my sister. Diane was so proud of these girls and their husbands, Tom and Matt, and admired all of their conscientiousness and attention to social and political issues. But Diane also respected that Julia and Bridget valued the importance of a good purse and scarf combo. Bridget referred to Diane as Mommy 2.0, as Diane made an effort to be around for so many of their important life events. Diane also loved FaceTiming with her grandnieces. So Diane was crazy about all 9 of her nieces and nephews, who were trained successfully by Diane to refer to her as beloved Aunt Diane, and they all do. Individually and collectively, she loved having you and your families in her life. As for me, everyone knows that Diane and I have always had a special bond, as evidenced by this really long slideshow. It started early, and our mom said I adored her from the start and treated her as my very own doll. Although I left home when Diane was only 12, we stayed close, and she even went on one of my and Rich's first dates. He'll never forget it. She was my maid of honor at 15 and signed our marriage license with a little heart above the I in her name. Probably not legal to have a minor as a witness to our marriage. And then she proceeded to get horribly drunk at our wedding. She's like 15 years old. As the years went by, we often made fun of our codependent relationship. She lived with us in New Jersey after Chris died, and I took her to Philadelphia for chemo and tried to assure her that she had more life to live. When she moved back to Miami to rebuild her life, I was very happy for her, but sad for me. Diane would be very disappointed with my behavior since her passing. I could hear her say, "Pull yourself together. Stop all that weeping and get on with your life. Get a dog." My husband, Rich, is an unsung hero in Diane's story, and they referred to her as our sister wife, which started when she lived with us and she would make Rich fabulous dinners, or dinners at all. He was her number one go-to guy for all medical issues, both canine and human. Rich would drop everything when Diane called for anything, and Diane felt comfortable with Rich, like really comfortable. Here she is. Let me put this in. Here she is making him acceptable for her to go on a beach vacation with her. We'll keep this up a little longer. Diane didn't like to show her underbelly too much. She was reserved with praise and compliments. So if you got one, it was meaningful. This is true story. She once took one of those Facebook quizzes where after you are done, it automatically posts the results of the quiz to your Facebook page. The quiz was, who is your inspirational person? And it turned out to be me. I was so excited, so touched. I emailed her and told her how moved I was, and then in a lengthy back and forth email, which I still have, she wrote things like, you weren't supposed to see that. Don't let it go to your head. And it's not like I think you're perfect. And then she took it down from Facebook. But my point is, I think she was always a little protective of her emotions, guarded. It was her personal defense system. I can take care of myself. But I know how much she cared about the people in her life and how grateful she was for them. So in closing, I just want to say on behalf of her siblings, thank you for coming to pay tribute to our sister. She will be missed by all, but especially her brothers and sisters. We've always been a band. Once we were a young, coming-of-age band with dreams and aspirations and thought we were so cool. Then for a while, we were a hot, hip band, and we were actually cool. And busy with our own lives, raising our families, and getting things done. And then, before we knew it, we got older and became kind of a desperate, trying a little too hard to be cool band. But we were settling in to become what we would be for the years ahead. A band of people who, despite our strong and different personalities, truly enjoyed and wanted to be together as often as we could. But now our band is broken up, and our favorite member is gone forever. Diane, who was always quick with a funny line, and who was always ready to go off on another adventure as long as she could get a nap. Grief is the price we pay for love. I wanted to remind you all that you meant the world to Diane, and I know she would want you to know that if only she had had the chance to say goodbye. Rest in peace, Diane.
Thank you so much. John? John's got a few words to say in behalf of Diane.
How terrific was that?
Thank you. Well, that's another one. That was really good. I'm the brother-in-law, and I'm going to say how Diane would say my name, and it was always John. John, what are you doing? But I just really want to just say thank you for coming, and also we just want to just take a time for prayer. So if everybody would just bow your heads. Father God, we acknowledge your presence here and come before you today as friends and family out of our dear friend and sister, Princess Di. We're here because we love her, and we miss her, and we want to cherish our memories of her. We want to honor her life and support one another as we grieve her passing, with tears, but also with laughter and with comfort, knowing her passing from life here with us is to life with you, with other loved ones that have passed on, with her beloved Chris, and with her numerous puppies, and for sure, in the infamous words of Prince, she's partying like it's 1999. God, thank you for Diane. You formed her, you knew her, you walked with her through the years, and even now we are confident that she is in your presence. Thank you that you're the God of love and the God of mercy, who promises comfort to us, particularly when we lose our loved ones. And so in these moments now, the weeks to come, the months ahead, please bring your comfort and strength to us as we remember and share fondly all that Diane was to us. We boldly ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, John. As a closing, we're going to have Tom Rogers, Julia's husband, sing one of Diane's favorite songs. I was working on it, but Tom's nailed it, so looking forward to this, Tom. Gentle on My Mind. You need it?
No, I think I should be good. I'll just sing out loud. So, Diane was, all of the Drakes have made me feel like a member of the family since I first showed up. But as we all know, Diane was the first one really to jump in and do that, to really make me feel like a member of the family. And it seems like lately most of the musical gigs I've been having have been Drake family funerals. And I recall at the last one, at Biddy's, she was sitting right in the front row. And I looked up for just a moment to see everybody, and she's sitting there and starts getting weepy, and it affected me so much because I really did love her very much. And so the rest of the thing, I had face down, don't look at Diane, don't look at Diane, don't look at Diane. So I'm hoping I can get through this and think, don't think about Diane, don't think about Diane, don't think about Diane. So here we go. It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk. That makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. It's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds and the ink stains that are dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory. That keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the rocks and ivy planted on the columns now that bind me. Or something that somebody said because they thought we fit together walking. It's just knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving me when I walk along some railroad track and find that you're moving on the back roads by the rivers of my memory. For the hours you're just gentle on my mind. Through the wheat fields and the pluck jumping, the yards and the highways come between us. And some other woman's crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone. I might still run, silence, tears of joy might stain my face, and the summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you walking on the back roads by the rivers flowing gentle on my mind. I dipped my cup of soup back from a gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard. My beard a rough and coal pile and a dirty hat full of low across my face. Through cupped hands around the tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waving from the back roads by the rivers of my memory, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind. On my mind.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you very much, Tom. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't really take this opportunity with everyone here who saw this presentation and eulogy for Diane that Kathy did. And on behalf of all of my brother and my sisters, thank you so much. It means a lot. But, you know, we'll remember her so fondly because of your effort. Thank you. Diane loved to eat. If you didn't get that from that, well, then you weren't listening, okay? So we're going to ask you all to join us and honor her with a shared meal with everyone here. So we're going to start any time, so please help yourself. That concludes the service today, and we'll be thinking about Diane a lot. She'll be gentle on our mind. Thank you again for coming, obviously.